Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Audible Farm podcast. This is episode number 30. My guest this week is Bob Minter. Bob is a radio DJ, and he's also the founder of Code Zero Radio. Code Zero Radio is an internet radio station that he started that plays music from unsigned artists from not only Iowa, but across the U.S., into Canada, across the globe, as a matter of fact. So if you want to check out some amazing music, go to Code Zero Radio, listen to what Bob's got going on. There's plenty of other DJs involved. We discussed that a little bit in the upcoming podcast, as well as what got him started on this venture of supporting other musicians' work. And we even touch a little bit on the topic of Bob being a musician himself. So this podcast is going to be a great one. Check it out. Bob's got a silky smooth radio voice, if I do say so myself. So enjoy the podcast, everybody. I really appreciate Bob for sitting down with me and doing the podcast. So this is episode number 30 with Bob Minter.
It's the Audible Farm podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Bob Minter, sitting down today with Bob Minter. What's up, man?
Not much. Fat and happy after our last road trip.
That's good. That's a good way to be, is fat and happy.
Yeah.
You and I have known each other for quite a while.
Right.
But we've never actually interacted.
Right. That's the first time I've met you.
Yeah, exactly. We may or may not have been at the same show once or twice, maybe.
Could be.
But I've never talked to you other than on the internet. So this is kind of fun to sit down with you because I've known you through Facebook and, what else do you do? Let's talk about it.
The social media friendship thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a stigma attached to that or not.
No. I first met you, I guess. I knew you as a radio DJ, an online radio DJ. So let's start there. You run Code Zero Radio.
Right.
You are the man there. You're the main DJ dude. Is that correct?
Janitor, promotions manager.
So what got you started into that? Is that something you just fired up on your own, or how does that come about?
What, you want the long version or the condensed version?
We've got about an hour to kill. So
actually, I got laid off at Electrolux in 2009. Because they moved to Mexico, right?
Yeah.
So they had to pay for schooling for everybody that got laid off. I decided to go back into broadcasting, and Iowa Central offered a broadcasting course.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn how to do digital audio, and which was listed on their course explanation. So that's what I did. I went to Iowa Central for 2 years in the radio program. In my second year there, I started a show called Homegrown. Which is such an original title. I don't think anybody's ever used that before.
Oh, probably not.
Well, I was featuring, local Iowa artists, and I started looking for them, and I realized that there was so much more out there. It was mind blowing. It was a very awakening moment when I learned how much music was being produced out there that isn't played on the radio. So I changed the name to Zip Code Zero and kind of started branding the show in 2012.
Yeah.
I was on another streaming station for a couple of years, and then I started Code Zero Radio when I realized that even one show on another radio station for one day out of a week was still not enough, and I knew that I had to do something about it. So streaming radio seemed like a common sense thing to do.
So you weren't like a radio broadcaster before this, were you?
No, not at all. My only radio experience actually was an internship at a station in Hampton.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know any of this. So the crazy part about this to me is I could not tell that this wasn't something you had been doing before you moved it to the internet.
Really?
Like my assumption was that you were had originally done like radio, like public radios of some sort, like you and now you were doing like a private style thing on the internet. So that's actually really cool. I guess I didn't realize that you kind of just wanted to find music out there, and then all of a sudden you found all the music out there. So I know that on your radio station you play stuff not just from Iowa.
Right.
Yeah. So was there a transition period because you said you talked about having a radio show where you're going to find all the music that's out there in Iowa? Like, when did you realize that, like, Iowa's, like, where do you draw the border? And then you were just like, all of it, let's just bring it all in.
It was about, I was about a month deep into Homegrown, and I started looking on Reverb Nation for Iowa bands. And that's when I started seeing bands from other areas, and I started listening to the music, and that's when the light bulb went off. It's holy, you know what?
Yeah. You can say whatever you want on this.
That's the thing about being on radio. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you get the mic in front of your face, you start to think, well, wait, what should I say?
Yeah,
you know. So I get you. You know, even though I have, like, I was talking to someone the other day, I have an explicit tag on all these just in case somebody flubs up and I don't want to edit it out. And it took me like 28 episodes to use an F-bomb. And and I was just like, well, it's in there. Do I want to edit it out? And I was like, nah, I'll just leave it in there. It's explicit for a reason. But yeah, I totally get the whole microphone in front of your face and you're on this is like your job. So you're so used to being as professional as possible.
Well, you know, there's no censorship on Code Zero Radio. I don't edit stuff out. Some of the older stuff I did, and I quit doing that because, you know, it doesn't make sense. But it's funny you should mention that, because I was on the air at KICB at Iowa Central, and I brought in this band for an interview live in the studio. Yeah. Right. And I told him, well, you can't, you know, there's no cussing because we are regulated by the FCC. And the very first question I asked this guy, he drops the F-bomb.
Oh, smooth. That's classic.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite bands around the area that, I mean, I'm sure there's dozens upon dozens that it's tough to ask that open-ended question and have you maybe forget to mention a few. But
that's tough. That really is. You're talking about Iowa locally?
Yeah.
Man, I got to give a shout out to Eric from Hold for Swank. I really adore that band. There you go.
Yeah, I'm wearing the Hold for Swank shirt as we speak.
Yeah, that's right. A little mental note there. I just really admire all the stuff that he's put out. And I had an interview with him, and he's a very funny guy, too. Very funny.
Yeah.
What else? Ashes Armada. I think they're recording a new album. I don't bet the ranch on that, but I've always admired their stuff. There's a band called Black Star Alliance. They're no longer together.
Yeah.
And they put an album out called Commercial Failure. And just impressive as hell. Just so impressive. So bands like that, I'm sure there's a lot, like you say, and I'm probably not Three Fingered Betty, I suppose.
Hey. You know, a funny thing about the Hold for Swank guys and Eric Nelson is I made a guitar for Iowa Central to raffle off for the accounting club because oh man, if anybody ever said, when you're 30, you're going to be in an academic club at a community college, I would have said, nuh-uh. You know, and here I am. So,
yeah.
But I've enjoyed my time there so much that I ended up like creating a guitar for him. I designed it for him, and the raffle drawing is soon. But I also made a video for him, and I uploaded the video on Facebook. It's also on the Audible Farm YouTube page, but it has Hold for Swank's one of their songs played in the background of it. So,
really?
So I did ask his permission. We got all the permission from the guys, and we did it the right way. You know,
license is clear.
Yep, we're good. So, but the song fit exactly what I was kind of going for with it, and it was too good not to use. So I had to shoot him a message and say, hey, can I use this? And if I haven't thanked him enough, here's a public thanks to Eric Nelson. I had him on a podcast not too long ago too. It was like episode 10 or somewhere in there, but
really?
It was a really good one too. I mean, he's just a really entertaining guy. It intrigues me how I've been watching him play guitar now for like 15 plus years. And I was actually just talking about that with somebody earlier today. So it's kind of crazy how Eric Nelson's come up twice in one day.
Oh yeah.
So
another band that I greatly respect is the Chris Carr band. if you've ever had a chance to see these guys live, please do so. They are all master musicians, I guess, if that's the correct term. Jeff Blummel, Chris Carr, Scott Dahl, all those guys, Bruce Borchard, they're such good musicians, and they understand what it means, the dynamics and harmonies and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoy seeing that band.
I couldn't agree more. Watching those guys play live was something that made me want to change the way I was playing guitar, because I was just kind of like a power chords and punk kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I was literally that up until I was about 26 or 7. And then I started seeing those guys play live, and they cover, like you said, they cover all the bases. Every single one of them standalone is amazing at what they're doing. Right. Even when it comes down to singing, like you said, they're not messing around. They're doing harmonies, they're doing background vocals, they're doing it all the right way. I've always enjoyed watching them play. I've taken my mom to go see them play, and now she likes to go see them play. It's one of those kind of bands where everyone is so talented, it's hard to deny how awesome of a time you're going to have when you see them play. And
they are musicians for sure.
I also like, I don't like giving out bands fun bits, but they also do throw some they got some tricks up their sleeves too. They're not always taking themselves 100% seriously.
Oh no.
So
there's a good comedy routine running throughout the entire show. I think.
It's multiple inside jokes that I don't even know the stories behind, but they're funny, and that's all I know. So yeah, those guys are all a hoot. I've interviewed Jeff Blummel on the podcast here, and he's a fun guy.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is great to talk to. So I had Scott Dahl on here again a while back. That was one of my longest ones. I mean, that was when I was still trying to figure out how long am I supposed to talk, and I think we went in almost 2 hours, and it was just like, oh, this might be a big one, So.
Yeah. So you don't limit your podcast to a certain time?
No, I've done as short as a half an hour, and I've done as long as about 2 hours, and I try to stick close to an hour. I'm not too picky about anything. This is kind of just something that I'm doing for the benefit of the person I'm interviewing and the people that listen, to widen their stance on the music scene around.
Right.
And like I said, I've it's mostly musicians, and you're a musician yourself. I mean, don't sell yourself short on that aspect.
I'm a ham-fisted hack. It would be the best description of that.
I remember you you had a fun video online of a song, and I forget the name, but you made all of it with like an iPhone or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it was a challenge actually that I had to do.
I loved that concept. Like, it's such a fun concept to sit down and think that you're writing a song and doing a video, but it's not just as simple as you have everything at your disposal. You still have to make it with an iPhone. The video was made entirely with an iPhone, so it's just kind of fun to see where the angles came in and how everything fit. And that's just one of those really fun things that I don't think I see too many people kind of playing with what they're doing in order to create something new, because I can't remember the saying, but it's like out of, oh man, I'm going to have to put it in and post edit. I can't remember. There's a saying for that, but it's, whatever. Anyways, there's a saying for that, but it's
creativity is so important. It's what keeps things fresh, I think.
Yeah.
And if you're not always thinking ahead, you kind of get stuck in the mud.
Yeah. The saying I'm thinking has something to do with innovation. I don't know what it is, but that's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
You spring creativity out of thin air by kind of constraining what you had to do in the first place.
A word of advice: if you ever tackle a project like that, make sure that you have a pretty good video editor, because the first one I used was a freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
And I spent about a month putting together clips for that video, and I'd have to shoot with my phone, upload it, and then process it. And this program kept crashing on me. And I finally, after about a month, I gave up and uploaded a new video editor.
Yeah.
It was a magnificent pain. But after that, it was pretty smooth. And to carry that a little bit further, I always wanted to produce a video of a band shot at a nightclub where you could take clips from a whole bunch of different phones, have everybody shoot video, and then take the different clips and then run the song in the background, right? And just overlay the clips on top of that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I love that idea so much. Okay, here's something for you though. You would have to make sure to tell everyone to hold their phones which direction? Sideways.
As you're looking at your radio from left to right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's probably one of my favorite things about you is some of your eccentricities come out online, and that's one of my favorites is the fact that people shoot video with their phones vertical, even though they're going to upload it to YouTube, and then you just get a little tiny sliver of a window in the middle. And I'm just as guilty of that. I mean, I made videos for those guitars that I dipped, and the dip portion, like the dip video, is vertical, of course. But I'm not the one recording it. I'm the one dipping it, so I can't take all the blame. But still, yeah.
Well, when you're holding it in your hand, obviously that's easier to do.
Yes.
Than trying to hold it like that.
Yes.
But it's either do that online or go out and yell at people to get off my lawn. So,
oh my gosh. So you take a lot of trips to go see shows pretty much all around the state. You go to Wisconsin and go see shows too.
Right.
What's your ties to Wisconsin area?
Where do I start with that? Like we were talking about early when I started looking for new bands for the show, I found the Lately on Reverb Nation, and it was like, wow, these guys are really good. They'll never allow me to play their stuff on my show. And they did, and we got to talking, and I got to talking with their manager, and we actually, they lined up a show in southern Iowa when they were on their way back from South by Southwest. So I went down there to meet them, and I met Jerry, their manager. Nice guys, nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. And Jerry invited us up to Appleton for the Mile of Music. He said, "You guys got to check this out." So we did, and that's when our love affair with Appleton started. And there's just so much happening musically that we have to keep going back up there.
Yeah, I've never actually been up there, but from what I see you posting about there's always something going on.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like there's, I mean, obviously you get like the big cities around here, like Des Moines got shows all the time, and there's always seems to be shows somewhere in like the Cedar Rapids and Waterloo and Iowa City areas and stuff like that. But up there, it seems like they're packing it in tight.
They do draw good up there.
What do you think is the cause or reasoning behind any of that?
It's a college town, so that helps.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a couple of people that came from that area. Butch Vig is from Appleton. Corey, I can't remember his name now. Corey something. I apologize. I should know his name. He's pretty famous. But he's from that area, and they kind of incubated the music scene up there, and so everybody's really aware of what's going on. You got cover bands up there, and you got original bands up there, and then you have Corey actually started the Mile of Music, so he's responsible for that. I think that raised awareness of the amount of talent that's up there.
Yeah.
So it kind of grew out of that.
What is the Mile of Music?
Mile of Music is 4 days of all original bands, most of them unsigned, acoustic or groups or whatever. And I think there's like 70 venues that they use.
Oh man.
Yeah, every place turns into a venue. On College Avenue, that's where they got their name, Mile of Music. There's a mile stretch of clubs, and every club they provide sound and lighting for every artist.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean quality stuff. So, and they even got a guy singing in the shower. They got bands that play on the bus.
That's cool.
Yeah, isn't it? That's a really neat feature. So if you want to ride the bus for a little while, it takes like a 20-minute trip, and the band performs. Mile of Music, like I said, I think 70 venues, over 900 performances over 4 days.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's a monumental take. I think it's everything that South by Southwest should have been.
Yeah. Every time I think of South by Southwest, I think of how awesome of an idea it is.
Yeah.
And then from what I hear from most people's interactions with it, it's kind of a cluster jumble.
Right.
You know, it's not all that it's cracked up to be, but it's still awesome. You know, it's not like you show up to a venue and play to nobody, but I feel like it's been taken over by the musicians and not by fans, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of industry involved.
Yeah.
Which there should be. I mean, it was a showcase for major labels to look for new bands. I think is originally how it started out. However, when they start calling the shots, I think that's when it kind of jumps the shark.
Yeah. Oh, jumps the shark. Love it. Oh man, that's fucking hilarious. All right. So, are there any other festivals that you like to go to other than the Mile of Music? Is there anything else that's anything close to that you know of?
Man, we've gone to Bratfest in Madison a couple of years.
Madison's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been there a handful of times. I went there for a couple shows. I've bought gear from people in Madison. I love Madison. You know,
yeah.
It's kind of sucks if you're driving to Milwaukee and you got to go through Madison during rush hour. But
that's what my son says. He says it's horrible.
Yeah, that's like it's my favorite and least favorite part probably about, you know, there's a lot of awesome parts about Wisconsin actually, you know.
Bratfest is cool. I mean, it's free, and you can't beat that.
That's awesome.
It's free. They got a lot of acts that actually I play on the station, and that's primarily why we went. But it's free. The staging is great. There's too many brats to be had.
Too many?
Too many.
I don't know if that's all right. The look in your eyes,
buddy.
says...
I'm telling you, it's like go see this band or eat another brat. It's a hard choice, but
yeah.
So that's another one we like to frequent. I can't really think of anything. I've never been to the 8035.
I never have either, but I hear it's huge.
Yeah,
I've seen pictures of it, and that place is almost always packed too.
It's a very good deal for the Des Moines Music Coalition.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They're not. When I thought of it, I always thought it was just kind of like softer bands. It definitely is not. They almost always have some sort of a metal band in there.
Oh, really?
You know, a Traffic Death played a couple of years ago, and then you know, they, as far as what I can tell, I was not there unfortunately, but that place was packed from what I saw. So. You know, those kind of festivals, I think, do you think it would help if there are more of them, or is it better if they're few and far between? Let me ask you that.
I think they could, I know they have to pay for the artist, but I think ticket prices is what keeps some people away from that.
Yeah.
They might offer a discount, or they might reduce ticket prices for some events. I don't know. Mile of Music, they managed to put on for free. And it's way hard. I think there's like, oh, geez, what do they say? 200,000 people?
Oh, wow.
Over 4 days. And it's all
That's
free.
crazy. That's all I wonder how they pull all that off. Is it just...
they rely on sponsorship from the companies up there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So they probably just have somebody running it to help organize it, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, and then they don't draw any money off of it. It's just the sponsorships.
Yeah, it's strictly nonprofit.
That's really cool. I wonder... I mean, there's a lot of... It sounds like such a cakewalk, you know, when you say it in a handful of sentences, but it's a lot of responsibility for somebody to take on.
Oh my Lord. I don't know how they organize it. And it's really well organized. They've got an app.
Whoa.
That the app is absolutely amazing. You can schedule, you can sample the bands, you know, and it's just an amazing thing that a local company up there does for them. The organization is really good, and it's all volunteer work. You know? But another thing is the artists that they draw in are primarily unknown. Well, they're fairly well known in their own circles, but like the 8035, they'll bring in something like Keisha.
Yeah.
You know, and they got to pay out the for that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Whereas Mile of Music, they don't. They're not bringing in the huge name acts.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like how you said they're well known perhaps within their circles. I find there's a lot of that in the music scene where you get one band that has a small circle and they're ridiculously famous amongst that small circle.
Yeah.
But it seems tough being in a band and trying to step outside of that genre, like your own little area that you're used to being in, and go to somewhere else and have exposure. I always thought that was kind of a difficult thing to do, was to book yourselves into more positive exposure.
Yeah.
I think it'd be better to do that at a festival setting, or
that's the $64,000 question is how do you strategize growing outside of your circle? I don't know if festivals are a way to do it. That's definitely one way to do it. However, I've talked to several people in the industry and they said, go play live wherever you can.
Yeah,
wherever you can. I know a band from Pittsburgh called the Hawkeyes, and they are extremely popular in that area. Then they started going out on the road and going out further and further and further. So now when they go up to Appleton or wherever, they draw a big crowd. So they kind of grow a fan base wherever they go.
Yeah, that makes total sense. The one key factor in exposure is you have to be out there and be doing something. You know? So you have to take the bookings, you have to go play the shows where only a small handful of people might be there, because you never know if you come back and each one of those people told somebody else.
Right.
Or maybe none of those people will be there and you'll have 10 new people and you run into the same, so you're still, it's not like you're putting all the asses in the seats, but you still get to be in front of people and do the thing you're doing, which comes down to, I guess, professionalizing what you're doing as well. You're getting used to playing with each other and hitting the notes that you need to hit when you need to hit them, and
be good.
Yeah, exactly. Just be good in general.
I used to subscribe to a newsletter by Bob Leswitz. The guy must type 4,000 words a day. And he just whipping out these newsletters all the time. But the one thing that always stuck in my mind in one of his newsletters, he said, "Be great." Because people will always make time for great.
That's true.
Yeah. So if your act is great and you've done everything you can to be great, people are going to come see you and they're going to come back and they're going to tell their friends.
That's very true. I can't think enough about that, how I've been playing a lot of live shows and I get to see a lot of bands play live, and the ones that I enjoy the most, that I think, exactly like you said, have done what they can do to be as good as they can be doing what they're doing at the moment they're doing it. Those are the people that I think are great, and I've sung their praises multiple times over, whether it be on social media or to my friends or sharing their music with other people.
Exactly.
Even if it's people that'll never make it to a show. One band I like to point the finger at a lot is TVcap. I mean, I love what those guys are doing. I've always liked their sound. I've told so many people about them, and I ended up, we played on a show with them down in Des Moines, and a handful of my friends didn't even tell me they were going to come to my show, the Three Finger Betty and TV Cop show. They just showed up, and it was like, what are you guys doing here? It's like, we came to see TV Cop. And it's like, it's almost an insult, but that's awesome, because you guys like these guys as much as I like them, and it's just one of those crazy things that you can almost take comfort even in doing business with those kind of people when you have a band where it's just like, these guys, you don't even have to worry if they're going to hold their weight or if they're going to do what they need to do. And hats off to those people out there doing those kind of things, because it takes a lot of time and dedication.
I think I started following TV Cop because you were always talking about them on Facebook. They went by another name.
Sports Team.
Yes.
Oh, I love that name too.
Yeah.
Sports, and you know what? It's so weird because it's when they had talked to me about it, how they had to rename because there was another band called Sports Team that had released a demo like earlier in the year than they did. And it was like they missed their window by a small margin. And of course the band went through, and that band had gone through and done it right way and copyrighted their name, so it would be like an infringement thing. So they're like, we got to rename. And it was like, that's so sad because this is like such a fun name. And I had like an old sports shirt that said Sports Team on it, so it looks like you're wearing like a baseball type 3/4 sleeve shirt, but it just says Sports Team on the front. I mean, but when I went to go see their show when they were going to rename, because I figured it'd be awesome to, I drove all the way down to Ottumwa and saw them down there, which is quite a drive for me. But I drove down to go see them live just for the simple fact they were going to rename themselves, and they renamed themselves TVcap. And it's just one of those deals where you're like, man, how do you guys pick the two best names for bands ever? Like it doesn't make any sense. It's awesome.
TVcap is just as cool.
It is. It's such an awesome name,
Yeah.
It fits well. Those guys are tons of fun. I can't wait to play another show with them. It seems that every time they're in Des Moines, I have to miss it because of one obligation or another. So, if anybody's listening, that's TVcap's a fun band to go see, I guess, as we talk about them a whole pile. But that's what this podcast is here for. So,
that's right.
So what kind of music is your favorite music? Let me ask you that. If you can pigeonhole it down into one genre-ish.
It's got to be... Hold on a second. I'm losing my mic here.
There we go.
I was like doing this.
Yeah, you're leaning down with the mic.
Oh, it's got to have a sense of urgency. It's got to be a little bit rough around the edges. I'm trying to think of a good example. The Virgin Marys out of Ireland are just fantastic at that, and songs like that, bands that are a little bit reckless, a little bit dangerous.
Yeah,
and you kind of wonder if you're going to survive the night. I don't know if there's a genre for that. It's just rock.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, because it's not necessarily metal. It has the flavor that you're going for. I'm pretty sure if I can try and stab at it too, would be something. It's not necessarily like guitar solo heavy, but it's kind of like maybe like, I like how you used a sense of urgency.
Yeah,
that's such a good descriptor.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like fast paced, but it doesn't have to be fast paced.
No. It's the chords. I heard somebody describe the chords that convey a sense of urgency, and I can't remember what they are because I'm just a bar chord idiot. But yeah, it has to convey that feeling like there's something has to happen right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I like about Black Star Alliance.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I ever listened to them, but that name's so familiar. It's one that's come up over and over again when I talk music with people.
Really?
And I don't know where or why I know that so well, but it seems like I do. So that might be something I'll have to dig into a little bit there.
I got one sticker up there. I got their album somewhere around here.
Yeah.
Very, very well produced album.
Yeah, we're actually sitting in the Code Zero Radio studio, as a matter of fact, which is pretty awesome, because I never thought I'd be in the place where Bob takes all his pictures of him making funny faces and having his glasses half off his face and such. What exactly is, like, what is your drive behind? I feel it's such a refreshment in social media where everybody seems to post the same droll stuff over and over and over again. Like, my Facebook profile is pretty much just like a hooray for me, this is what I'm doing. I did a podcast and I'm playing a show and I made this guitar. It's like, but yours is like intermixes funny in there and stuff like that. So I don't know, like, what I don't get it, because I'm not a funny guy. I guess it's tough for me to cut loose. So it's just fun to see you doing that kind of stuff. Like, what's the drive behind that? I think it's because I was dropped on my head as a child. Jeez.
I've never been able to be serious about anything. And I don't know why that is. Sometimes I wish I was, but it's just not happening. So I just got to go with it.
I can see where it would be a hindrance at certain times, but I have to tell you, I admire that quality Thanks, so man. Much. I've laughed more at scrolling through Facebook at stuff that you've posted than almost anybody else, just via the simple fact that I just know you're kidding around almost about every single thing, and it's so funny. Whether it's memes that you're making or memes that you found or
stolen
or literally just a picture that you put text above and made it your own. So it's I totally dig it. Where, like, can people friend you on Facebook when I tag you in this? What's going to be the status quo there? Or should they just go to your Facebook page for Code Zero Radio?
They could do that. or Bob Mentor on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm going to take a picture with you here after a while, and we're going to get ready to post that online.
Whatever traction you may have gained by now will surely slip.
Oh, man. So what is it that drives you to just keep doing this day in and day out? Is this your day job? Is this what
is
what brings home the bacon here?
Well, I don't know about that. It's a funny thing. It's really weird how things work out in life. And I don't mean to get philosophical on you, but
let's do it.
Do it, man. I worked 10 years at Electrolux, and manufacturing is really hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to get up and do it every single day, and the working conditions are horrible. And so it was a blessing to get laid off, and they paid for school, and I enjoyed myself for 2 years. And then reality set in, and I had to go back to work. I couldn't find a job in radio. Nobody was hiring. Nobody.
I've heard that's kind of how it goes. The people that are there are staying there, and good luck getting in.
Yeah.
So
it was a bitch. So I had to go back to work at a manufacturing place, and I hated it. I hated my life. I hated everything about it. I was actually making $4 less an hour than I was in 2009.
Oh.
Yeah, and one night I was just pissed off at the world, and I tried to do something, and I wrenched my back real hard. I mean, I could tell I'd done something bad, and I tried to cover it up for a few days, and finally they came up to me and they said, "We got to send you home." Because I'm dragging one leg behind the other, and I'm swallowing Advil by the bottle full. And come to find out, it was a burst disc that was rubbing against the sciatic nerve. Blah blah blah. Went in for surgery and applied for disability, which pretty much gave me free reign to do what I wanted to. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I get you.
And thank God for my wife. She still works, and she still brings home a pretty good paycheck. So it allows me to do this. But like I was saying, it's funny how life works out, because it's a mission of mine, and I made it a mission to give exposure to these bands that deserve it, because what else are they gonna do, And it's hard for radio stations to pick up on local acts. It's hard for radio stations to pick up on regional acts that are doing really well, because they've got this set that they have to pick from, this list.
Yep.
And they cannot do this list. So something has to happen here. Now, internet radio, streaming radio is not a game changer yet, but I fervently believe that it will be.
Yes.
I see a lot of that coming about. A lot of the stations that I network with, we're all playing the same artists.
Yep.
And we've all kind of got, internet stations are like herding cats.
Yeah.
Trying to get them organized. But through the music, we're all starting to play the music, and more people are starting to see, well, this station's playing it, and this station's playing it, and this station's playing it. So I'm going to have to check it out. And hopefully that will turn the tide.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally like you're building, what would you call it? Like terrestrial radio from the ground up, but on the internet,
Right.
You're, it's literally no different than that. Cause when back in the 60s and 70s and maybe into the 80s a little bit, you would have had that where it's just like, oh, I heard this station out of Cleveland playing this, and then the next station over, like Chicago picks it up, and then after Chicago picks it up, and then it kind of goes to Minneapolis, and it just starts bouncing around until all of a sudden everybody's listening to Bon Jovi or whatever the hell it is, but you're doing that same thing and trying to attempt to you're working with other radio stations.
Yeah, in a loose fitting sort of way. I mean, we've all got our own ideas of how the stations should sound, but we distribute links and stuff to each other. I do a live show 3 nights a week, and then I do a recorded show on Wednesdays, and I upload that, and I share that with 6 other radio stations.
Nice.
So these artists not only get played on Code Zero Radio, but they get played on these other stations, and so in a way it's kind of a network.
Yeah. You say you're live 3 nights a week?
Yeah.
Which nights are you live?
I I don't know. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
What time? This is mostly Central Time Zone.
Right,
people,
Central Time, 7 o'clock Central, 7 to 9.
Yep. That was one of the first things when I started tuning into I would watch you on Facebook Live on your personal page, and you'd do a little, I'm going live in a little bit, so let's talk about some stuff. Those were some of my favorite things to listen to you just sit down and talk about whatever it was you were talking about, even if you were just talking about how the internet out here is crap or whatever it was. Every single, it just seemed to be pertinent for the time, and it was a nice little glimpse behind what was going on, instead of just listening to the show and only the show.
The pre-show show.
Yeah.
I enjoyed doing that. I tried to do it with my webcams, and for some reason, it buffers really bad here. If I do it with my phone, it's fine.
Yeah.
But the audio is not is where I want it to be.
Yeah, it's always kind of tough trying to integrate your phone into what's going on, because the phone is such a blessing to have around, but at the same time, you want to make a video with your phone, audio is not going to be great, you know, and it's almost always that way. And you can do an outboard mic and do all that thing, but then you're still tethering your phone to something else, and you got to get a nice stand for it and make sure the cables are long enough, and nobody wants to have that spaghetti mess on their desktop. And
I saw that Shure Microphones has they have a gimbal handle for your phone now.
Oh, yeah? With
one of their mics attached to it.
Yeah, I started seeing that
that's like $250 though.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm game for that, but
I'm going to go to a nightclub with a $250 bill in my hand.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Somebody just snatch it up and run away. Yeah, I've been trying to. It's been a while since I've done any video recording of bands and put it on YouTube, but I've been trying to find a nice, simple setup that I can take places, and just one handheld camera I can set an outboard mic somewhere else and just smash the audio to the video, or even a camera with a mic that you can just maybe attach one to the camera itself, or have like a nice little handheld thing. And I've yet to find anything too amazing. Do you have any ideas on any of that, or
not really? You know what? It doesn't exist. There's going to be compromises when you do something like that. I use a couple of Logitech cameras, and I get a feed from the board. Yeah, I get a 2-track out of the board, and if it's the right mix, it sounds great.
I've attempted a few times to record off the board at certain places when I go there, and a lot of times the sound guys that are working there are just like, huh? Yeah. And it's unfortunate, because I'm trying to convey the idea that there's one of the outs on here you're not using. There has to be, because most of those super big mixers have tons and tons of ins and outs that you can choose one of the outs, whether it's the control room out or something. So I try to convey the idea to these people, but some of them are just hourly paid employees at certain places. So, and I get it. It's just like, no, I'm not going to tinker around with this. And
I'm not getting paid for that.
Yeah, exactly. So I get it, but luckily I've had pretty good luck with a Tascam DR40 for just picking up ambient noise and recording. It's kind of like one of those Zoom mics, but it's a slightly bigger version of one, and it's I don't know who came out with one first, but it's just a portable recorder is all it is. And
field recorder.
Yeah, and they work really well, but at the same time they pick up too much sound sometimes, you really got to dial it in. And shout out to Clint Blumker he had one forever and showed me how to dial it in, and so it's done us pretty good. But you've done a little bit of recording here and there at shows. What did you use for video?
The cameras, the Logitechs.
Yeah. Oh, so that's what you use for the Did you ever go around with it, or did you just attach it fixed? They're just a fixed location.
Stationary. Yeah. I got a 2-camera shoot. And speaking about Chris Char, the guy is a whiz. He's my mentor as far as audio gear goes, and he uses the Soundcraft UI series for their PA wherever they play, and he gives me a tablet, and it's got its own separate monitor mix. And he says, well, use this. So I was able to mix everything down into my board, into my software, and it was fantastic. It turned out really great. And I wish every club that you walked into had that, capability.
Yes, I will have to say I was at a show not too long ago, and he was running sound. And after the show was over, I saw him, and I was like, "Hey, what do you got here in this little box that you carried over here?" And it's like you said, it was his Soundcraft.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. He was just showing me with his tablet what he was doing with it. And it's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing when you think about all of the gear and junk that people have carried around for so many years.
Right.
And he's got like what is it, like a 10 space or 12 space rack, and it's literally all of that plus a tablet and speakers, and that's all he needs.
Right.
And you can do anything with it.
He's always singing the praises of it. That's just, and cordless.
Yeah.
You don't have to run a snake. And it's an amazing system.
Yeah, I was blown away by it. Like, as a matter of fact, when we got done talking about it, I left and then I had to do something. But as soon as I was done with that, I was like, I'm all over Googling this thing and seeing what it's all about. And I mean, I obviously have no applicable use for one at where I'm at, but I've gotten my eye on things like that because we were talking about buying a little too much gear here and there, like before the podcast started, and I've definitely fallen victim to that before. So I'm gonna bide my time on this one, but for right now, I'm digging my little Focusrite that I use for this,
right?
Which I've seen better, but I've also seen worse, and this thing definitely does. For how much I paid for it, it does a lot of good for me.
It's perfect for what you're doing. It's compact and
and I can adjust individual lines quite a bit easier than other things. Like with the field recorder, everything you kind of just have to set one level for both channels unless you start tinkering with it a little too much, and then it's But yeah, so I do really dig what I'm doing here. I see you've got a pretty okay setup. I don't know too much about like I'm sure you're more professional about what's going on than what I have going on my ends. But did they teach you all of this stuff at Iowa Central, or is this something they teach you the basics of and you just kind of jumped into and learned more as you went?
Not really. Iowa Central was more of a training ground for actually being in front of a mic and developing your mic technique, developing your timing, developing a clock wheel for your station, that kind of stuff. As far as gear goes, I've always been into this stuff, and so I knew what I wanted to get right away.
Oh, nice.
This actually is Tailwind audio production, and I started building this studio up because I wanted local bands to come in here and record, and that way I could put their music on my station and they would have something to put on social media.
Yeah.
So I was always collecting this gear and getting this started up even before KICB.
What's crazy is I feel like our stories kind of have the same bedrock. I recorded bands with video and put it on YouTube because there was tons of bands that didn't have YouTube videos at all. Like none of them, had nothing, no live, no nothing. Or if it was something that somebody had recorded with a phone that was vertical in a club that was too loud and it didn't do anybody any justice to be on the internet. So I was like, someone's got to change this, So it's the bedrock of our foundations is the same thing. I feel like we just wanted to. And I don't know, a lot of it was I was so self-conscious to play music too that when I finally went out there and started playing, I saw everybody out there and I was like, well, these guys are good and those guys are good and man, this guy's good. So I just started like, hey, come on in and talk to me about what you're doing because it's killer and I dig it. So I want to hear your story, So it's just anything for the exposure, anything to give back, especially for the amount of enjoyment that I've drawn out of going and listening to bands.
That's the reward right there is.
Yes. Yeah. And this is just the icing on the cake is getting to sit down and meet these people and talk to them and meet fellow concert goers. And recently I've done stuff with I did a podcast with a comedian and
nice.
I did another podcast with another podcaster. That was pretty fun. I had a guy that contacted me. He's a online persona. He's the Iowa Pizza King. And so I did a podcast with the Pizza King. So I got
saw that.
I got
That
to
was
sit
cool.
down with royalty for a while. It was such a good time. You know, that was an odd one that I learned not to eat a meal with somebody before you do a podcast, because we burned so many baller topics while we were eating a meal, and then we got to do a podcast, and it was like, well, I mean, I dog-eared a couple of the topics, but let's start talking again, you know. So
I did that with Jeremy Ober one time. We were attending one of his shows, and he sat down and talked with us, and we got into this conversation.
Yeah.
And halfway through this conversation, I'm thinking, this is freaking radio gold.
Yeah.
Why am I not recording this? You know, It was one of those moments like, jeez.
So maybe you should start carrying a little field recorder with you.
And we're talking about bad video. I know bands are anxious to get their stuff out there on social media and stuff because they're really proud of what they've done, and rightfully so. You know, it takes a lot of work to get to that stage.
Yeah.
But if I could implore anybody out there that's just starting out, don't take a crappy video and then post it, because it doesn't do you any good.
No,
if it sounds like somebody dragged the phone across the pavement.
Oh, it's rough.
Yeah, and it doesn't do you any good. In fact, first impressions are the most important.
Yeah, and you don't want to be that video. You don't want to be. And that was the other thing, was I'd never wanted to be recorded and put online in that aspect either. Like you'd be scrolling, like one of mine was Instagram. You scroll through Instagram and you click on one video, and all of a sudden all the audio starts playing for every video you scroll past.
Yeah.
And you get to one where it's just like wow wow wow. You know, it's like just sounds insanely gross. And you know, oh man, these guys are killer live, but this person is cupping their phone in a weird fashion or something. I don't know what the deal is, but it's not doing the band justice.
Right.
You know. So a tip of the cap to you for giving that advice, because that's what I wanted to do with Audible Farm originally, was that it's a little time consuming editing down audio and video all the time, especially with, you know, me. I'm not professionally trained how to do any of this. You know, I just go out there and do it because
it has to be done.
Someone has to do it, you know, and might as well be me, I guess, you know. So if anybody else wants to take the reins on this one, go for it. I'm all for cross promoting material and talking about other people's awesome stuff they're doing. For example, your radio station, which, you know, has Iowa bands and beyond. As a matter of fact, like Three Finger Betty's been on Code Zero Radio before.
Always in rotation.
It's in there. You know, you'll hear us there. If you guys have your own band that has a recording that is a nice recording that sounds good, send it over to Bob. Remember what we were just talking about, how you want to put your best foot forward. So put your best foot forward and send it Bob's way.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I like what you're doing. I like it a lot more than most people will ever give credit to somebody at this point for an internet radio show, because you are doing God's work out there, if you want to say it that way.
Yeah.
Like you're shining a light on the actual people that are going out and doing the actual work. You know?
That's the way it should be, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, go out and support the people live too, because I mean, there's bands that I've heard on your radio station that I've Googled to find out where they're from, and of course, and there's most of them aren't from around here that I've enjoyed, which is just the way that it goes. But I'm looking for you. I'm wondering if you're going to come around and play. You know, there's handfuls of you out there that it's one of my favorite things to do. Is your radio station is like my wild card. If I go somewhere and I don't want to Spotify anything and I don't want to listen to podcasts, it's like, all right, Code Zero Radio, here we go, because it's going to be something most likely that I haven't heard before, and most of it's going to be, even if it's not my favorite kind of music, it's all going to be great. And that's one of my favorite things I've found out going out and playing music in front of people is you're going to find people that will enjoy your music even if they don't enjoy your music. You know, they're gonna enjoy your musicianship, maybe is a good way to say it. They're gonna know that you guys are all talented enough to be doing what you're doing, and that's
not just following the crowd.
Exactly.
If I could really quick give a shout out to I started on a new platform at the beginning of this year called Radio Char. It allows me to get guest DJs on the air without them buying their own software. You know what I'm saying? All you need is a microphone. So I got on this platform. It sounds great. I had a chance to purge a lot of my old junk out and start playing these bands like you're talking about that are different but good. And so Andy McNamara from the band Pudge contacted me and said he was interested in doing his own show. And so we got him going on that. And the guy has got everything figured out way beyond me. He was so quick in picking it up. And so he's on the radio twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays right after my show. And I'm telling you what, if you want to hear music from every corner of the universe, this guy plays bands that are so good. I just, tune into his show sometime. You'll be amazed.
I'll definitely have to do that.
Yeah.
I will admit that I usually only tune in if I know that you're going to be on. So
check out Andy's show. It's
we'll
just wonderful stuff.
I appreciate you agreeing to join me on this podcast venture, because I'll tell you what, it was listening to your radio show that made me kind of want to do this.
Awesome.
It's people like you and people like Mason down at 92.1 doing the regional rock hour in northern Iowa. I mean, everybody that wants to give back just a little bit, I want to help shine light on what you guys are doing too, because I'm not the only one out there doing this.
Yeah.
And if you want to, I only talk to musicians. If you want to listen to what they're actually doing, hit up Code Zero Radio, because that's where you're going to find actual music, because I'm mostly just an interview podcast. I've yet to put any music on here, just for the simple fact that it seems like every time I try and put music on anything I put online, that even if it's from a band I have permission from, that it usually gets flagged and I have to explain myself. So I don't want to do that every single time I upload a podcast. I'm sorry. I might seek out some advice from some people in the Iowa Podcast Network on this topic, but we'll see. I'm still debating on whether or not to actually try and put music on here. So for the time being, go to Code Zero Radio and check out Bob Minter's awesomeness. Is there anything else you want to add to the conversation at all?
I am done.
You're done.
Pete.
All right. Bob's done. So thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Hey, there's another one in the bank. Shout out to Bobby for doing a podcast with me. Bob Minter's one of those guys, like I said, I've known online for quite a while. He's always having fun. He's really fun-loving, just generally and all around, and it was really good to find out that he's the same way in person. So shout out to Bob for being a real great guy, just in general. He's out there doing the dirty work in the music scene. He's plugging all these bands and going out, but you know what? He's also having tons of fun, it sounds like, going to the shows and enjoying them. So tip of the cap to Bob. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. Make sure you follow him online. Go to Code Zero Radio. Make sure you listen to some of the awesome stuff he's got going on there. He's live 3 nights a week. I'm going to have links down below so you know where to find Code Zero Radio and where you can find Bob online. So thanks again, Bob. I super appreciate it. Make sure you go to audiblefarm.com. That's right, audiblefarm.com is a thing now. It is definitely a thing. If you go to that website, you will find all of the places you can listen to Audible Farm online, as well as all of the places you can follow us online, social media-wise, as well as a new feature. One of the coolest things that's on audiblefarm.com is there's a little form that you can fill out if you want to be a guest. Then you just fill out the form and give me your email address and who you are and what you do and why you're cool. Play it up real nice. And you know what? I'll do my damnedest to find time to do an interview with you. I've driven many miles to do interviews with many people. I have one person in particular I want to do an interview with that face-to-face is going to be a very tough time to do. It would be we just don't have schedules that would meet up very well. So I may end up doing a Skype cast. And if it comes out all right, I'll post it, and I hope it does, because I've talked with this individual and it's going to be a great one. So you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and like us on Facebook. We are at Audible Farm. Make sure you go there and support the page. Leave a review anywhere you listen to the podcast. You can leave a review on Facebook. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. There's podcasts, there's band videos, there's more on there. I put the Hydro Dip video from the Iowa Central guitar that actually got raffled off last night. So congratulations to the winner. I'm actually doing pre-recording this segment, so I don't know who won, but whoever did win, congratulations. Man, what a fun time it was making that guitar. Maybe I will have a small discussion about the guitar with somebody and put it in here as a special edition episode, because I had a blast making that thing, and it was gorgeous. I can't believe it turned out as good as it did, and couldn't have been happier after it was all said and done. So hey, thanks to anybody that bought raffle tickets from me. All the money went to a good cause. It went to an academic club that I'm a member of, and I couldn't be more proud to raise money for this academic club. So shout out to anybody that bought raffle tickets. I super appreciate that. Once again, go ahead and leave us a review online if you want to. We are all over the place. Thank you, Bob, for coming on the podcast and meeting up with me and finally getting this thing done, because I had a blast hanging out with you. And thank you, all the listeners, for tuning in week and week out to check out who is out there doing awesome things in Iowa. I really appreciate you guys. I never knew that as many people were going to be listening to this when I started doing it as there are now. And I guess, what do I expect? I'm out there talking to all these cool people, so I'm sure you guys want to hear what they have to say. I'm just glad I get to sit down with them, and I'm really happy you guys are listening. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast. If you've made it this far, I'm sorry the outro's so long. Here's a big tip of the cap to you guys. I'm out till next week. Check it out next week. There's going to be another great episode. Peace.